All right. I believe we're live. How's everybody doing? Thank you so much for coming out. I already have some comments here. Dr. Fibes says, great show, excellent vibe. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Garrick says, oh, join the Discord. And Amanda says, waiting patiently for this to start. Thank you so much for waiting patiently. Would someone give me just a quick thumbs up or something to let me know that they can hear me on the live stream, because I just want to make sure my audio is working. With that being said, today we're talking about playing evil characters. Heck yeah. This is actually fresh in my mind. Oh, awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you. This is fresh on my mind because I'm playing an evil character right now, and it's super, super fun. Let me drop this Discord link in the chat. If anyone hasn't joined the Discord, feel free to join if you want. I'm going to pin this comment. That is the invite link, so you can join if you'd like. It's pretty awesome, pretty fun. Anyway, so playing evil characters. The downside to this, and the thing that a lot of GMs are worry about, is that evil characters will ruin the game. Basically, they'll turn on each other, maybe steal from each other. As a general rule, we associate evil characters or evil characters more as villains than good guys. They tend to do evil things, which are, I think, this isn't necessarily a live stream about the what makes evil, but as a general rule, I think a lot of people would agree that it sort of is something like evil has more to do with selfishness, and good has more to do with serving others, that kind of thing, or at least doing less harm to others. Evil doesn't really care if harm is done to others, something along those lines, right? So it goes without saying that evil characters could be a bit of a problem, because if you have players start to do bad things with each other, like steal from each other, plot against each other, lie, deceive each other, manipulate each other, use each other to try to gain selfish personal advancements, etc. This could obviously make players very upset and angry, and this might make them want to quit the game. And so that is kind of the danger with evil characters. Let me go to the chat here real quick. Amanda says you should join the Discord. Is fun to Dr. Fibes. Absolutely, it's super fun. Iskandar the Great says, yay, I made it. Heck yeah, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you all for showing up. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy these. It is my coffee break, but as per usual, I'm going with the heavy caffeine. I've already drank 2 cups of coffee, and here we go with the energy drink. Been going at it since pretty early this morning. Got up really early this morning, so I'm a caffeine lover, that's for sure. All right, chat, if you have any ideas about evil characters, GMing for evil characters, or playing evil characters, please feel free to drop it in the chat. I would love to share it. So Whispering Wisp says, do you essentially ban PvP? Okay, that's actually a really good question. And let me talk about that for just a second. I have GM'd for a lot of games where players played evil characters. I've never banned evil characters from my games. With that being said, if anyone ever plays an evil character, I make sure to do a disclaimer on the game. Basically it's like, okay, listen, when there is an evil character and the player is going to actually play them evil, there is a very good chance there's going to be inter-party conflict at some point. I personally, as a GM, don't have a problem with this. I think it's really fun. I think it can make the game real spicy and dramatic. And I think that I have, as a general rule, tended to play with people who were able to maturely handle that and navigate it. With that being said, I have played with people who have gotten real bent out of shape by that. I've had people play evil characters, and then they got turned on by the good players in the group because of the evil things they were doing, and then they got bent out of shape by it. And it's like, well, that's a danger. It's just a danger. If you do evil enough things, good characters will want to smite you, basically. And then the same is also true. I've had games where I've had a lawful good paladin, or actually she was a neutral good paladin, who was basically let me think about this. I'm trying to remember how this was. Lost in a cave in a desolate desert with a chaotic evil barbarian, a lawful evil necromancer, and I think there was Oh, no, no, and there was a lawful good paladin NPC. So it was like just one good character, one good NPC, these two evil characters. They were all chasing the same big bad. So they had to like it was such a tense, weird, dramatic arc, like them traveling through those caves because what ended up happening was there actually ended up being a fight between the NPC paladin and the lawful evil necromancer. They finally came to blows because the lawful good paladin, the NPC, she could not stand by and watch the necromancer do some of the despicable things he was doing, like while they were down in those caves. The player character, the one playing the paladin, but she was a player, she decided to say, you know what? I'm going to accept what you're doing for the greater good. We'll deal with it when the big bad is gone. But this other paladin couldn't hack it. I like rolled and she couldn't hack it. So, it just goes to show that it can get messy, but it can be really fun. And so it can absolutely be done. But I have had a lot of GMs tell me they don't allow evil characters in the games because they don't want either like murder hoboing or they don't want like players turning against each other and that kind of thing. So that is a valid thing. And all of that was really just a response to Whispering was saying, do you essentially ban PvP? No, I do not ban PvP in my games, but I do make sure that if we go into like a PvP type situation, like literally while we're playing the game, if a player attacks another player or does something to another player, I always kind of like stop the game for a minute. I say, okay, now everyone just let's take a quick little pause here. We are about to enter PvP type territory here. I just want to make sure everyone's cool, right? And I want to make sure we all know that this is just in game. We're not like trying to hurt each other's feelings outside of game or in like, yeah, outside of game. But, this is about to happen in game. Looks like. So I just want to check in, make sure everyone's cool and chill, right? And then we proceed. I do kind of give a disclaimer, especially if I'm playing with new players, because new players can get really upset if player versus player stuff happens. With that being said, I do not ever ban it in my games, and I do give I kind of try to walk players through it and be a little careful and gentle. But hey, story's going to unfold how story's going to unfold. Dr. Five says coffee break, beer break, whatever. Heck yeah, it's maybe not quite that late for me yet. Maybe later. Stephen Matta says, good morning, JMP. Hey, good morning, Stephen. Dr. Five says, evil characters must still work together to achieve nefarious deeds. Being sociopathic or murder hobos will not last long in fantasy world. You are right. And the truth is that if you are an evil character playing with a bunch of let's call them good or even neutral characters, if you start doing murder hobo stuff that's going to disrupt the party, I'm at my table, I'm gonna be quite honest, I kind of expect the rest of the party to just take you out and be like, okay, let's get that character out of here, roll up a new one. Like that's the vibe at my table a lot of times. And so it's a little bit cutthroat in that respect. I do play with a lot of really mature gamers, and that's that's the thing we laugh about, and it's fun. It's like if you go too far outside of the mold, the rest of the party is just going to kind of make you roll up a new character because they're going to take out your character. Is kind of how it goes. Um, with that being said, I can totally see how that sort of vibe would not be kosher to a lot of groups. I also kind of feel like that's a self-rectifying situation. I kind of think that that's a good thing, to be really honest. But let's talk a minute about running an evil character. And actually, you said a really important thing, Dr. Fibes, which is evil characters must still work together to achieve nefarious deeds. Working together is like the key thing. If you can find a way, and I think players should do this, if they're going to play an evil character with alongside good characters, they really should find a way in that character's motivators, in that character's personality, in the backstory to make it vibe in such a way that it's not going to just disrupt the party. I think it's irresponsible to just throw a chaotic evil character into a party that looks like it's going to be like a reasonable, rational party and then just do chaotic things. It's sort of irresponsible as a player. You really shouldn't do that. And this comes around to, I'm playing in William's game on Sunday evenings. My friend William, Dungeons and 20s, basically has a Twitch and YouTube Dungeons and 20s. And I'm playing a lawful evil Minotaur bard in that game. And the reason I call him lawful evil is because he's very loyal to the people who are helping him to achieve his goals. His goal is he wants to be the greatest merchant in the land. Basically, his god is gold, and his catchphrase is, the only god is gold and God is good. So he basically worships the idea of being rich and powerful. He sees it as being the ultimate power. So everything he does is motivated to get him more gold. The reason he's going on this adventure and going to this war to fight this evil creature is not because he believes in some grander good, but because he sees it as opportunity to make himself a prolific figure. And it's in his best interest to work together with his compatriots to do that. He's just not a good guy. He's opportunistic. He is greedy. He's selfish, but he's also loyal to his group, and he will sacrifice for them because he believes that that reciprocity will be good for him. And so that's how he melds with the group. Let's see here. Amanda says, when I think evil player, I think Dr. Doofenshmirtz type players. Okay. have you run games with those types of players before? Whispering Wisp says, so you do allow mixed party as well. That's tough. I do allow mixed party in my games, and I think it's super fun. And it's a little dramatic. Some players, maybe it's not good, but I think it's really fun. Garrick says, ads popping up, silencing the conversation. I'm sorry, Garrick. I do have it monetized. That's one of the ways that I monetize the channel. So ads are an unfortunate reality of our capitalist environment, I think. And as Grom would say, the only God is gold and God is good. So I think that's kind of the answer. Dr. Fibes says, you are correct, sir. Oh, thank you. Or maybe you're talking to someone else. Maybe you're talking to Garrick. Not a Jester, not a clown says, howdy folks. Hey, how's it going? Not a Jester. Garrick says, no one is terribly evil in his own eyes. That's actually true, I think. I think that with the exception of characters who like just do evil for the sake of evil, like if evil brings them pleasure and joy, they probably wouldn't call it evil. And it's probably true. They don't see themselves as evil in their own eyes. Even so, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think Garrick is right about that. Dr. Fibes says greed is good. Have you read Ayn Rand? What's her book? The Virtues of Selfishness by Ayn Rand. Very controversial, but interesting book. I have read it, and I think there are a lot of good points to it. Dr. Fibes says evil corporations vibes that can work. It's all about maturity. Absolutely. It is all about maturity. And Dungeons and 20s. Oh, there's William. How's it going, William? Says, I have had 2 evil characters in my long-term games that worked well with a good group. Both were really good role players and made it work using the groups to get to their main goal. Absolutely. I think that is a huge part of it. And I think that, again, as players should be responsible enough with evil characters to do that. I think it's irresponsible to just throw a wild, chaotic thing in there that's going to just mess up the game, obviously. And I also think that the rest of the party kind of has maybe a responsibility to take players like that out, like not the player, but to take the characters out and be like, look, bro, sorry, this character's got to go. We hope you roll up something more kosher next time. It's like, I don't actually have an issue with that. Not a Jester, not a clown says, I played my book's main antagonist villain as a D&D character. It was fun, terrorized another evil NPC with shenanigans. Sometimes there is something almost therapeutic and self-reflecting about role-playing an evil character. And I think GMs experience this when they GM a villain, but it's like you explore in play the darker sides of reality, and you do it in a world where you're not actually doing evil. It is a game world, sort of like playing an evil character in a video game. You explore these concepts that you would never explore in real life because you don't want to be a chaotic, evil murder hobo, right? It's like, or this world eating cosmic hunger monster. Like we're not going to do that in real life. Hopefully, hopefully none of you are going to do that. I would hope to believe that we all kind of want to be good humans and basically help humanity do better. But role playing the evil aspects of reality and our world and our psyche can be a bit illuminating, I think. And it can be a fun thing to do. And I even dare say it can teach us a little bit about the darker aspects of our own selves, the ones that we keep hidden because we want to be good people. We all have some darker aspects to our personality. None of us were born a saint and none of us exist as one. This is not a vacuum. We are in a very complex moral landscape. The human condition is a complicated ordeal, and we are an amalgamation of what I would call good and evil tendencies. And we just tend to suppress the evil ones because they don't get you very far. They make other people dislike you and they get you kicked out of the group. um, you know, plus, I would say that a lot of us probably have actual moral virtues we care deeply about, right? But exploring the darker aspects of nature in a role-playing game, let's just say it can be kind of therapeutic, can be kind of illuminating, can be kind of fun, and it's fun to get to do it in a play environment where, you're not actually being an evil person, you're just role-playing an evil character. Dr. Fibes said, talking to you, man. Oh, okay. Very good. Gentleman Snarker says, I played a lawful evil lawyer as Modian cleric. Oh, that's so much fun. In a Pathfinder game that ran way too short, Sylvester Montenegro Esquire was an absolute blast to play. Very understated, but had powerful presence. That's super fun. I love lawyers in D&D. People who play lawyers, it's so much fun. I have a friend who always plays characters like that. Whenever he's like a paladin or a cleric, he's always like the group's lawyer when they get in trouble. It's so much fun. Dr. Five says, nice book reference. Want to play evil, become a DM. Yeah, actually, that's a good suggestion. Someone has to play the big bad. Avery Juno says, that's exactly why I'm getting ready to play an evil paladin that is constrained by her oath and forced to consider a different way of doing things. Oh, that's super interesting. So it's an evil paladin. So the character is evil, but she has to be good because of her oath. That is super interesting, actually. That's actually a really deep role play concept. I like that. Steven says, I think my players are a little evil. Lol, they have good intentions, just evil solutions. I think that's what we call chaotic neutral, maybe. It's like maybe the outcome is good, or maybe even the chaotic is neutral, but boy, the methods are questionable. Do the ends justify the means? That's a question we have to ask ourselves every day, I think. Gentleman Starker says, that sounds like an interesting concept, Avery. Yeah, I agree. Iskandar the Great says, if you don't think people are evil to themselves, then you've clearly never spoken with a self-aware sociopath. They are fully aware of what they are. People, okay, I think that's a reference to the comment earlier on where it's like people don't see themselves as evil. And so Iskandar the Great, that is actually an interesting that's an interesting observation, because that's a little different thing than like the average person. Not everyone is a sociopath, and I'm not even super like knowledgeable about those things, or like psychopathy. I don't know, but it is very possible that there are people who think that way and who kind of think, oh yeah, I am evil and I embrace it, and that I believe in evil and I believe I embody it. That would be kind of the equivalent of an actual like neutral evil villain in D&D, something like that, who does evil for evil's sake. Dr. Fibes says, that's what makes DMing great, can explore the human condition from all sides. Yeah, absolutely. It does make it great, actually. And it's therapeutic. I think I keep using that word because I think it's true. I think it is therapeutic. Amanda says, I have one player that plays a PC that I would call evil, but he's more evil towards the environment and loyal to the group. But he is he is my gas pedal to the ground type player. Okay, yeah. So, I think sometimes too, evil is like evil can be subtle, right? And then it can be hard to distinguish from chaos. Sometimes evil is hard to distinguish from lawfulness. One of my favorite catchphrases I say about paladins, and I got it from my friend who's another good gamer and GM, is lawful good doesn't mean lawful nice. It's like, you might think a lawful good paladin is cold-hearted and brutal and doesn't care about anyone, but the truth is that their actions may just be governed by a very strict moral code that doesn't allow for any empathy. They just have the code, so law can sometimes almost look evil. It's in the eye of the beholder. See what I did there? It's almost in the eye of the beholder, but chaoticness can also seem like that. If a rogue just gets an impulse and stabs a dude in a tavern, was it evil? Or was it actually a chaotic impulse? I think it is about the intention. it's really about the intention. I think the action could actually be good, evil, chaotic, lawful, whatever. It is the intention behind it and the context. See, it's always contextual. There always has to be context. It's like that person was wrong for stabbing that guy in the tavern. It's like, okay, but that guy in the tavern was a known woman beater. It's like, okay, all right, that's a different. Now it's more complicated. Was it actually good that he got stabbed? This is see, it's a moral quandary. It's a moral quandary. Garrick says, as they said on the kindergarten report card, does not work and play well with others. Yes, the kindergarten report card might say a lot about who we become as adults, maybe. I think that my kindergarten report card, I think I think I was pretty similar to how I am now, actually, back then. I'm pretty sure I was. I think a lot of my formative beliefs were already formed by the time I was in kindergarten, at least in a simplified version. And AWOL Warrior says, I've only played one evil character. He was a warlock who was absolutely obsessed with his patron. That'll do it. That'll get you. Those warlock patrons will wrap you into all kinds of evil. I have a player playing in my core group right now. She is very new. She has not been playing for very long. And her first character was a warlock. She ended up serving it was a homebrewed angel of one of the homebrewed gods in my homeworld. But this was basically, so the god was the evil god, and then this god has a pantheon of like fallen angel type characters, and they're fiendish, so they're like infernal, so they're sort of infernal natured. um so they're kind of similar to devils, but this one angel was way too ambitious and too destructive. So the evil god was like, no, you're throwing off the balance. I'm banishing you to a prison realm. And so they did. But this creature was trying to get out of the prison realm. So they made contact with this warlock, gave the warlock power. And so there was the relationship. And this warlock did all kinds of very questionable things at the request of her patron. And it was so much fun. It's so funny. She ended up breaking up with the patron, who was actually relatively understandable about it, because his stance was, if you do not want my power, I would never want to force it on you. Part of the pleasure that comes from acting my will upon the world is that those who serve me are willing and they want it just as much as I do. The destruction, the chaos, the craziness, stopping at nothing to achieve our goals, like the ruthlessness. He wanted that from his followers, and if they're not in, he didn't want them to be in it. But now he gave her like this stone that she can use to communicate with him, and he's like, if you ever want to come back, you break that stone, but once you do, you're mine forever. So there's this running joke where she's like, oh yeah, I used to do really crazy things with my ex. She like calls that like fallen angel her ex, and then every once in a while she'll feel the stone vibrate during like a questionable situation. He tries to tempt her to like break the stone, and she's always like, oh my god, my ex is calling me again. That's like how she role plays it. It's really funny. Anyway, so warlocks, heck yeah, they can get really chaotic and actually very evil. Dr. Five says evil characters on redemption arcs is great RP. That's actually very true. I don't know that I've ever role played an evil like character as a player that had a redemption arc, but I have run villains, actually, big bads who were bad in one campaign, and then they came back for a redemption arc to help the players in the next campaign. I've done that before. That's super fun. Gentleman Snarker says, deontology in my D&D, it's more likely than you think. Very good. Very good. Steven says, I like that lawful good doesn't mean lawful nice. I'm stealing that. Yeah, heck yeah. Dr. Five says, thanks okay. Garrick says, Steven, it doesn't mean lawful stupid either. That's true. It does not mean lawful stupid. Dr. Five says, everything you just discussed is why you seem to be experienced GM. I am a very experienced DM, for better or for worse. And in the earlier days, I had to learn a lot of hard lessons, but I have run a lot of games, thousands of games. There was a long period of time in my 20s where I was running, I mean, two 2 to 3, sometimes 4 sessions a week in my earlier 20s, back when I was playing Star Wars homebrew. But like when I started playing actual D&D, it was 2 sessions a week, like solid for years and years and years. Until I got into my 30s, then it kind of cut back a bit. I've made some videos about that. But anyway, Gentleman Snarker says, any DM tips for mitigating intra-party conflict between evil PCs and the rest of the party, assuming PvP is a no-no? Okay, so if PvP is a no-no, then you have to think, okay, what if pressure builds up? How is it going to get relieved? Because this is an interesting thing. So let's say you have a chaotic evil orc, and then you have like a collection of just good normal player characters. Okay, so you have like maybe a druid and a cleric and a fighter, and they're trying to be good. They're like saving children and they're like protecting the village. And then you have this chaotic evil barbarian who's just going off, breaking into stores, beating people up, stealing things, and then he just comes back to the party. Like what, it's like what, and then the party is probably naturally going to start to get associated with him. This is going to build pressure, and the other characters are going to get frustrated. They're going to be like, okay, this or they might, I shouldn't say they will get frustrated, but this is what tends to happen when this happens. They're going to be like, look, dude, you breaking into stores and all this, like you're traveling with us, you're breaking in stores and stuff. This reflects badly on us. Now we're wanted criminals. We didn't even do the things. We're just associated with you. You're making us look bad, bro. You're making us look bad. So how does this get mitigated? Well, if you don't if you don't allow PvP, in other words, if you're not going to let the players deal with this, like literally, like, in the middle of the night, they grab orc, tie rocks to feet and throw in river. If that's not on the table for them to use as a tool to deal with it, how are they supposed to deal with it? Are they going to be forced to just tolerate this annoying presence that's working against them all the time? Maybe. That might be a fun element of the role play. And I think that should be discussed in session 0. I really think it is, because that could also be very frustrating to players if they don't have a way to deal with it. Now, one thing you can do is you can stop when people are getting frustrated. You can kind of put the pause button on. You can say, hey, let's chill, chill out for a minute. Hey, everyone, let's describe why you're frustrated. This is a really good thing, is getting players to just say out loud why they're frustrated if they seem frustrated. Because a lot of times gamers feel like if they're frustrated, like they might start out by like making little comments or making jokes and kind of veiling the true source of the frustration, or they might start to like make little passive aggressive jabs. A lot of times it's because they don't want to come right out and be like jerks, but they are frustrated. So we can pause the game and say, hey, why are you frustrated? I would like everyone to go around and say if you are frustrated or not. And if you are, I would like to hear why. Let's all be very honest. And then I'll usually start. I'll be like, I personally, maybe in this case, I'm not frustrated. I'm like, I'm not personally frustrated because I think the drama is kind of fun. I totally get how the rest of you may not feel that way because you are in the drama. So let's start over here and let's just go around the table, and then we'll go around the table and talk about it. And if people do have frustrations, maybe they can talk it out, right? This is a more feelings friendly way to deal with it than just letting them hack each other to pieces if they are frustrated each other in game. I have had players get kind of offended by this. With that being said, I do make it known at my session 0s and in my core groups I play with that I do allow PvP, and I do not really get in the way of it. I'm not going to let people be mean or bully each other. That's another thing, is I don't want players bullying each other. I don't want the group of good players bullying the evil character needlessly or whatever without giving that character recourse to do something about it. So if all the good characters are ganging up on this evil character in game, the evil character is probably going to take steps to retaliate, which is actually good story and good drama. It just might offend people or it might hurt people's feelings. So those are the two ways. I either kind of let it self-correct with very light feelings training wheels, or I would not let it self-correct, which I actually don't do. I kind of always allow a self-correct option. But then it's just like, then act as kind of mitigator and help with feelings if they arise while it's going on, and also trying to find a solution to the problem. Because at the end of the day, it could be actually highly frustrating for a group to feel like there's a player character who's just not working together with the party. And it's like, just so we don't hurt that person's feelings, we can't eliminate their character from the equation. That's kind of I find that to be a hard pill to swallow. What do you all think about that? I feel like that is a hard pill to put on the players, to be honest. I think it's actually kinder to allow PvP and then to put light training wheels on the feelings part of it if that happens. I actually think that's a better option. I think it's a safer, more self-correcting option, to be super honest. But I'm interested to hear what you all think. You might disagree with me on that, and that would be kind of fun to talk about. Good question, gentleman Snarker. Avery Gino Huxley says warlocks are perfect for this type of character. Patrons allow for some really great character development in RP elements. They totally do. Absolutely. Dr. Fibes says, just joined your newsletter last night. Can't wait to look at what you've created. And I am forever DM. How can I join one of your games? Well, right now I'm not like, I'm actually, there's a Sunday night spot available in Williams campaign that I'm playing in. I'm not GMing that one. Williams GMing that one. But if you want to play with me, you could join our Sunday night campaign possibly. And that you just do through Discord. With that being said, I don't have any games open I'm like recruiting players for right now. But when I do, it would be in the Discord. So joining Discord is the best way to like stay up on top of that. Whispering Wisp says, I could see honor-based questing balance out the reputation to make the group as a whole be considered a wild child or dark hero group. Yeah, no, that's probably how a lot of people would look at it. If we're talking about the having like a mix of good and then evil characters in the group, that's probably the summation of what most people would think of them. Yeah, for sure. Unless they were the family of the person who got bludgeoned in the inn, and then the orc went murder hoboing, and now they're looking for some retribution, and they brought all their large gangly cousins with their axes and clubs. Garrick says looking for group on the Discord. Yeah, there is a looking for group text channel on the Discord. Steven says, Dr. Fibes, join the Discord. We have a few games going. Yeah, there's a lot of games going in the Discord, actually. Garrick says a bolt from the clear sky removes the offending character. That is, I think you meant that as a joke. I feel like that would be very hard to push onto the character. I think you're joking about that. I one time had this joke for a while. I one time had a real issue with metagamers in my like core group for a while. This was back when I was playing like 2 sessions a week. We had a really serious group going. It was like sometimes up to 13, 14 players. And we had a real serious issue with metagaming. So I started this thing where and I borrowed this from another GM friend of mine. And I had this thing where I said, okay, guys, just so you know, your characters are aware that there is a monster in this world called the metagame monster. And if you metagame, that monster finds your character in game and pummels them until you stop metagaming. This monster cannot take damage. It can't die. It can travel anywhere it wants. It knows everything. It's omniscient. It's omnipotent. It's omnipresent. And you can't hurt it. You can't destroy it. You can't escape from it. And I used to have metagame counters. I would give each player a D6, and I would like, if they metagamed, it would be like, oh, that's a metagame counter. And I'd put the on the D1, like, put it on the 1. And then if they metagamed again, I'd turn it to a 2. I'd be like, oh, the metagame monster shows up at 3, just to give you a warning. And that's how I stopped metagaming in that group. The metagame monster never had to show up. Only the existential threat of the existence of the metagame monster was enough to keep metagaming at bay. But anyway, that's kind of a fun thing. William says, session 0 and a one-shot is always good to see the level of temperament for players, just to see if an evil character will work in the party. Yeah, totally. I think that's actually a really good approach. Session 0 and playing with someone is always the best way to kind of get a handle on what kind of player they are. It's always the best. Gentleman Snarker says, I like your approach. I think PvP can open the door for some hurt feelings above the table, but that's what the feelings training wheels is there to help with. Great advice. Thanks. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, that's just my advice. Take it or leave it. I hope it works. Dr. Five says, thanks. Avery Juno Huxley says, I love the idea of having a patron who doesn't reveal their identity until late game to be a future version of themselves guiding their past selves. That's actually actually fun. I had a situation not involving a warlock patron, but I had an interesting situation where there was a character and there was there was like time wobbliness going on. And it turned out that one of the main characters was actually the son of one of the PCs and the NPCs who later got together and had a child. But all through the beginning of the campaign, there was like time wiki wacky stuff going on, and they actually were adventuring with their son, but they didn't realize it. And that was a super fun, like the big reveal on that one at the end was actually really shocking. And the player was like, oh, like it was actually a very, very cool moment. It was like a buildup of years of role play that then got revealed at a crucial moment, and it just worked so well. It was like, mwah. You ever have those things that just work out perfect? They just work out perfect. It's like your plans actually worked really well, and it was one of those moments. Avery says, I love the idea of having a patron who doesn't reveal. Oh, we already talked about that. Garrick says, damn ads again. The only God is gold, and God is good. Dr. Five says, metagame monster, brilliant. Yes, it has never actually shown up in my games. It's just only the threat of it has been enough. Whispering Wisp says, witch hunts could be a thing if evil deeds are found out. I imagine evil characters could even do quests for churches to be absolved, basically socio-political or actual indulgence. Yeah, no, actually, that's true. And another thing to take into account is that when I said earlier that players would tend to be lumped in with their evil counterparts who are doing murder hobo things, that's not always necessarily the case either. Because if a group comes after them and the rest of the party is like, whoa, we know he's an issue for us. In fact, if you want to go after him, we will stand aside. We are not trying to be in your way. In fact, here's some coin for your trouble. That can happen too. I've had players use that tactic, like with characters who were really kind of being out of control. I've totally had that. In fact, one time I had this one player who was a real goober, and he just got on everyone's bad side. And he was like, he was a young new player, and so everyone kind of just gave him a little hard time. But he was such a goober, and he did so many things that were such a nightmare in the game, and just made everyone's lives more difficult. The only reason we tolerated him was because we actually liked him in real life, and we loved him as a friend. Like, so he was a friend, real friend. But in game, he was the biggest goober. So what they ended up doing at one point, where they went into a city and he was causing so much trouble that they like basically falsified this report and got the guards to arrest him and had him thrown in prison for the duration of the time they were in that city. And then what ended up happening was they just got him out of the prison before they left the city. And basically got him out of the way. So we role played this like side arc where he got to know these other prisoners. They were plotting an escape. It was like really funny. It was just like a really funny thing, and he deserved every single bit of it for being the biggest goober on planet Earth. Anyway, so let's see. Avery Huxley says, oh, I love that. Yeah, no, totally. That's awesome. Awesome idea. Doing quests for churches to be absolved of your sin. It reminds me of a spell. There's a spell in 3rd edition called, what was that called? Atonement. I'm going to look it up real quick. Atonement. We used to use that spell all the time in our games because we played a real god-heavy game, and players would switch gods when their gods got angry at them and were trying to smite them. So the spell Atonement, which I don't think there's a version of that anymore, but let me see if I can. Is it in this book? I believe it is. Atonement is an abjuration cleric level 5 or druid level 5 spell. Casting time 1 hour. This spell removes the burden of evil acts or misdeeds from the subject. The creature seeking atonement must be truly repentant and desirous of setting right its misdeeds. If the atoning creature committed the evil act unwittingly or under some form of compulsion, atonement operates normally at no cost to you. However, in the case of a creature atoning for deliberate misdeeds and acts of knowing and willful nature, you must intercede with your deity at the cost of 500 experience points in order to expunge the subject's burden. Anyway, so there's a section about reversing magical alignment changes, restoring classes. For example, if a paladin violated their vow and lost their class features, restoring cleric or druid spell powers, redemption or temptation, etc. That's from the third edition player handbook. But we used to use, I swear, Atonement would get cast 2-3 times a night at our table because there's so much wild shenanigans going on. William says good groups are reactive while evil groups are reactive. So that is a different way to play it if you let them loose into the world. Oh, proactive. Okay. William says, I think what William meant was good groups are proactive and evil groups are reactive, I think is what William meant. Okay, so anyway, Whispering Wisp says, I would worry about the jail time thing would be really boring and frustrating for the goober unless you are playing it like a split party really well. But other players may feel that punishes them. Yes, no, 100%. I really do not like to do things that take a player out of play. Like, so anything that causes a player to miss significant playing time, I'm not a big fan of. And I think it feels bad and I don't think it's a good idea. So for example, I would never do that. Like I would, in that case, I mean, it was like an act of mercy because the alternative was the whole party just smites him and be done with his nonsense. And he was really asking for it. But that's a really rare exception. Generally speaking, the way that I would want to run that is I would never want to pursue a course of action that removes a player from play for like a long duration of time. And that includes like things like during combat. I don't like to use abilities that take players out of combat for like more like several turns. I even hate to take a player out of combat for like one turn. It just feels really bad. So I would rather kind of like suppress some things, like maybe instead of stunning them, limit their movement speed a little bit or something, right? You just like and the same is true for the role play aspect of like them going to prison or something. What I'd be more likely to do is role play the whole group going to jail. And then I would role play like the ones who are innocent are like proving their innocence in court and probably being successful. But then there's that whole arc where they're together in the arc, right? That's how I would prefer to run it actually, because it does feel bad to get taken out of the game rotation. It feels super bad and it's boring for the players and I hate it. I always hate it when that happens. And I also hate it when players don't get enough game time because of like deep role play, but there's only a couple really role play heavy players. And then the others are kind of more sitting in the background. And if I forget to engage them enough, it's like they'll never engage. And that feels super bad to me. Like I want everyone to get the same playing time. And I have to really be mindful of that. Like, because in my game, this is kind of like that. Like half the players are really upfront role players. Like they'll dive in of their own volition. And then like half the players are very much sit back and less engaged with players. And I always feel like I struggle and like walk a very tight rope of like bordering on not engaging those players enough, just because there's always like 3 players who are really like active. So it's just like a balance thing. I just don't like players to miss gameplay. Dr. Five says, yes, stunned, move at half speed and attack at disadvantage. Okay, that's if that's actually what stunned does, that's not so bad. What I'm talking about is if like they get hit with an ability that lets them take no actions or movement for their whole turn, like more extreme things. That's what I'm not a big fan of. Avery says, I love the idea of the party going to court to defend themselves. Oh yes. That is so much fun. I think that's such a fun thing. Anyway, all right. Well, that's going to conclude this live stream. I should probably get back to work now that I've had my caffeine break. Thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for hanging out. Steven says, yeah, I don't like stun mechanics. Instead, any stun I replace with dazed where they only get one action, bonus action, movement, or reaction. Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. I like that. All right. I will see all of you on the next one. Next episode coming out tomorrow morning as usual. And tomorrow I plan once again to be here for Coffee Break Live at 1 p.m. So, hey, everyone have a great day and I will catch you later.